Okay, so then can everybody see this okay? And I can always boost the font size. Okay. All right. Basically, I'm going to cover just a few things on GTK and I'm not going to go into great depth. I'm just going to try to give you a feel for it and hopefully get you excited enough to want to run back and download the development kit and start playing with it. So basically, here's my talk in a nutshell. Just brief. This is about the history, the library dependencies, good old Hello World, what a widget is, how to do layout, buttons and signals, menus and toolbars, tree view and icon view, dialogues, what they call RAD tools, and how GTK fares on other platforms. And then of course the example application that's my company. Okay, so I've been doing Linux for many years, and I've been developing software since I was in high school, a little bit before that. I got a lot of professional experience in Unix development, going back to, I don't know if anyone remembers Xenix, SEO Unix, SGIRX, and some others. Got a lot of professional development experience in Microsoft Windows. Big co-founder of Big River Software Corporation, and I really like cross-platform applications. Because my experience has been, my background is basically in Unix development. They really stress cross-platformness, and when you get into Windows, it's kind of like, there are no other platforms. It's only Windows, right? Or they'll say, oh, we're cross-platform. I can code this in Windows 98 and so run it. And so it's always been one of those things that I really got into GUI programming under Windows. I didn't do any GUI development really under Unix. And I just said, this is just bass actors. I mean, I like the Unix development model better, so I try to apply what I know into the Windows world. Anyway, if I searched for a nice GTK or a nice interface library, it kind of brought me to GTK. So, what is GTK plus? It was initially, anybody familiar with GIMP? The GIMP is sort of a Photoshop. You can call it that because it's kind of its own thing. But if you don't know what it is, GTK Plus was developed as a widget set for the GIMP. And they really wanted just pristine look and beautiful graphics and that kind of stuff.
Wasn't GIMP originally like in Motif or something, and then they decided to stop?
You would know better than I.
I thought it was written using Motif library, and then maybe the license was no good, and/or they didn't like it.
Right.
It's definitely ugly.
So they decided to make up their own interface library, and they decided, hey, let's make this a separate toolkit. So it kind of began to evolve. And like I said, you can create really nice looking GUI applications, and all based on C or C++. It serves as the foundation for the GNOME project, and you can use. You don't have to run GNOME to use GTK, but everything's kind of based in GTK. It's a multi-platform library. Again, GTK Plus is just straight C, not C++. I mean, it could be used as straight C. It's multi-platform, allows your apps to be deployed on 3 different platforms, Linux, Windows, and Mac OS X. It's coming in version 2.1. Now, not quite there yet. GTK and then, Murray Cooney and a couple other guys decided to say, we need a C++ wrapper for this really powerful library. So GTK and then was kind of born. And it was originally known as GTK because they have a sense of humor. But that didn't track very well in search engines, so they decided to just say request --" with MM. And so basically, it's a C++ wrapper, or language binding for GTK+. It supports C++ features, such as inheritance, polymorphism, and other powerful C++ things that people can say. And since it was kind of recently built, as compared to Qt, which was created kind of before a lot of C++ stuff was locked in, this is a really good design, and it's very, very object-oriented. So it's one of the things that brag on the website. It offers a type-safe interface. It's a type-safe interface, so you can cache GTK runtime errors with PowerPoint, which is kind of a pain. In GTK land, it's all static functions and stuff like that, and kind of short code. So,
what do you mean by cache runtime errors in PowerPoint?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I'll just type that. In fact, I think I pasted that right off the site. So disregard that for it.
Okay.
Well, actually, I put that in to make sure you
Catch type errors.
You caught it.
What's that?
Maybe type errors, I think.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Probably what I meant. Probably what I meant by that. Because in straight GTK, all right, I'm not an expert on straight GTK plus programming. You probably know more than I have, but as I understand it, it's one of the gotchas is that everything is static member functions or static functions and stuff like that you're having to you're trying to catch errors and you're catching signals, and you have no type safety. But if you get into C++ land here, now you get the magic of the type safety. You can catch this thing with compiler. Cool. You can have class types on the stack, allowing you to avoid having to deal with raw pointers. GTK Plus only works with pair pointers, so it's really nice. They've got a whole set of powerful functions in glib that let you deal with raw pointers and that kind of stuff. It allows the derivation of widgets really the GTK Plus is pretty challenging. And it introduces another third-party library called C++. Say that 3 times fast. And it's cool because it basically handles GTK signals, but it makes them become nicely type-safe, and you don't have to have static methods to catch them. You can have straight C++ methods that catch GTK signals, and it's really nice. So, and basically it deals in single socket. So, library dependencies, I'll try to get through this as fast as possible, but GTK Plus itself has this set of third-party libraries that you need. So if you want to go out, typically if you just grab a Linux distribution like Ubuntu or whatever, you can get the latest GTK binaries just right in the distribution. But if you really want to get cutting edge, like if you want to do 210, 210 hasn't been released yet. I don't think it has. I don't think it's in like the latest Ubuntu yet. If you really want to get cutting edge, you're going to need to go and compile from source. And there's a lot to do. It's not that bad once you've done it, but I've done it about 100 times, and so I kind of got used to it. But at first, it's kind of a little daunting. But anyway, if you go with a binary distribution, I would recommend that. The third-party libraries in GTK Plus builds itself on is Cairo, which you can't read that, and I'm sorry, but it says that it's a 3D graphics library, basically. The current supported targets are X Window System and Win32. And they have experimental backends, which include OpenGL, and Quartz. And Quartz is the target for Mac.
Is that running in Firefox?
Probably. Most definitely.
Control Shift Plus and make it constant.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, I don't. That is that might be a font tag. I don't know if it'll make that bigger. So.
Yeah, because you've got giant.
Yeah, giant on the
unordered
side.
list buttons and then like smaller text.
We'll try it. 12 plus small digits a second. See if it works.
I'll tell you what, I'll try. See.
I think you lost focus on the window.
Okay. Is that better?
Hey!
Okay, so here we go. So the currently supported output targets again are X Window System and Win32. And the experiment backends again are OpenGL and Quartz, and Quartz is going to go from there. libjpeg, because we like JPEGs, and so it uses that particular library. It uses libpng to handle all PNG types, and libtiff. There's another library. That's these are the third-party libraries. Now, an actual GTK library is called glib. It's on the GNOME site. It's supported there, and it's a library of useful functions for creating GTK and GTK applications. It offers a lot of replacements for like standard libc functions, like malloc or that kind of thing. You can have, it's kind of, again, it's a straight C library, but it does double link with timers, string handling, lexical scanner, and some error functions. Tango is another GTK library that is used to lay out and render text, and that's how Tango makes things look really nice.
There's a SDL Tango library now, so you can do Tango, like reverse text and bidirectional language and stuff under SDL.
Well, GTK winds up wrapping some Tango things, so that makes sense actually. Okay, and then there's ATK, which is like an accessibility toolkit, and then there's GTK Plus itself, and that's just GTK Plus. Now we get into GTK and you see a lot more involved here. Again, actually, this is GTK itself is not. It doesn't have that many disparate libraries, but it's a lot of code. libc C++ is a nice lightweight library. It's heavily templatized, but it allows, again, that handles all your signals. glibmm provides the C++ language binding for glib, which you saw glib above. glibmm wraps that, and then GTK wraps GTK+. Any questions about that? Okay, so that's kind of the dependencies in a nutshell. So, I'll talk a little bit about the structure of a GTK program, GTK program. You have a main class and a window class. The GTK main, you pretty much need to have one of these objects, and I think only one. I don't think it makes sense to have multiple main objects. It cannot be global, and it must be the first GTK object created. And it is a singleton, which means that you can only have one. You can't have any more than one. And this is important. If you ever get into multi-threaded applications, you don't want to try messing around with a main on a different thread. That main needs to be your main UI thread. So there's some quirks that get introduced when you get into multi-threaded stuff. And then, of course, there's a GTK window. Now, you get to have one of these per interface window that you see. But a GTK window is distinguished by, you'll have the window decorations around it. That's the top level window, control level window manager, and of course it's hidden in the window manager's close button is closed. So let's just take a look at a real quick example program, Hello World. And pretty much that's all you need to get Hello World. Include your main.h, and here's your main. And I have a class called Hello World that is a widget essentially, and so we'll see Hello World in a second. Basically, you have your GTK main, which we always call the kid, Hello World itself, and then the static function off of main run. You pass Hello World in. That basically your application runs, and when you click the close button, your application will terminate. Hello World H looks like this. It derives from GTK window. Basically there's a single handler which relates to libc C++, and then there's a member widget itself, the single button that we saw in this right here, and it's a GTK button. And again, everything's in a GTK namespace, which is nice. So you can have simple names. And on the constructor itself, I just tell it to set the border width around the window itself. And here's where I actually connect the handler, which is pretty nice. Fortunately for wrapped. But it looks a little messy. But the more you use this, the more you get used to it, and it's actually not so bad. But what they do is they basically every signal in GTK has a method that returns the signal. So in this case, signal clicked. The object that's returned offers a method called connect. Now you want to call that method and basically pass in a pointer to your function. Well, that's not going to happen until you use this functor right here called sig C++ mem func. And what that does is it requires that you pass in an instance of your class and a pointer to the method that you want to call. And once you've done that, now you're going to get callbacks on your method itself, which is nice. You don't have to deal with static methods. So And then of course the last, you have to add your button. Even though the button's created on the stack, you still need to tell the window itself, hey, you have a button. And you add it. The window itself actually is a container. We get into containers in a bit. And then, very important, in button show, you need to show your internal widgets, otherwise you'll just get a blank window. Nothing in the destructor because it's not very interesting. Now when you click the button, on button clicked, you'll see hello world get put out to the console. So that in essence is a window. Now, the ubiquitous base class for GTK is a widget. Everything is a widget. Every UI element comes down to being a widget. The widget class itself is huge. It has lots of members and lots of methods. It's an abstract-based class. So, and again, every UI element in the library provides a lot of common signals as well, like show, on show, on hide, that kind of thing. There is one C++ object per widget, so you can always rely on that, which is nice. It can be arranged inside other container widgets. You can use it on the stack, you can use it on the heap. There's another functor called GTK manage. And what's nice about that is when you say you do a new on your object, you pass it into manage, and then you don't have to worry about, basically there's an internal garbage collector. So when the window is destroyed, it will take care of all of those children objects, child objects. Or you can choose to manage it yourself. So either way, you have a choice. But I really like doing it that way, so I don't have to worry about it. So basically, if you look at this class inheritance diagram, it's a little hard to see, but widget is at the center. And incidentally, everything is kind of a GTK object as well, and that's got its own set of things. But you can see that you've got, there's a calendar widget and a cell view and container, drawing area, and entry, and progress bar. And this is not an exhaustive list. There's a lot of widgets in the system, which just gives you an example. So, in GTK, it does a lot of layout handling for you. So, when you want to populate a dialog or a window, it's pretty straightforward to lay your dialog out. If you're used to doing, do I have any Windows programmers? Anybody that's done any Microsoft Windows programming? You've done some of it? You know that you pretty much kind of have to do your own layout. If you resize your window, it stays, and you write the right on-size method. Well, this, especially GTK, is it will handle all that for you. There is a widget that you can do your own layout, and you can subsequently put a widget at XY location. But for the most part, and that's just one type of widget. Oh.
Is that why when I'm using a Windows application and I go, I wish I could see more of this, and I go to resize it, it doesn't let me resize it?
It's not how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, they were just lazy.
It's usually a resource area. You actually fix the locations of this.
Well, you get into the dialogue, you edit the dialogue.
And then, unless you want to go to a whole bunch more work and figure out how you want it to be based.
Whereas GTK just does it for you.
Just does it for you. That's one. I think that's a really powerful.
Backwards obsolescence.
Yeah. So I think it's one of the most powerful things. But everything, layout-wise, is, almost everything, is a box. And a box, as you can see, I don't know if you can read this, but a box derives from a container. And a container is kind of an abstract base class that gives you certain things. It knows how to create widgets. It knows what to do if they're wrong. Things. The box itself also is a base class, and I think that might even be an abstract base class as well, to VBox, HBox, and a thing called button box. And a VBox is a vertical box, and an HBox is a horizontal box. And you can stack widgets either vertically or horizontally. And you can stack boxes or boxes. So it's again, this is an ancestor class for VBox and HBox. You can have a button box, which is a shortcut to adding buttons in the tray. Many GTK containers are in fact boxes where there's no boxes, so I just said about that. When you pack, you specify how you want widgets to fill the space. So you can just throw it in the box and it'll arrange it however they're default ways of doing things, but you can wind up with a bunch of buttons that are really long. I'll show you how to do that. And you can also reorder, once you add things, you can move things around too. You can reorder child code. So I'll give you an example of boxes. So I said you can control how you add them or where they go. You get some, the add method or pack start packing methods allow you to you can tell it to, when you pack in, to shrink down to the smallest possible size. GTK widgets are pretty smart, so if you load them up with text or drawings or whatever, it kind of understands how small it can go. And when you do your own custom widget, you can specify what the minimum size is and what the maximum size would be. So space is contracted to the child widget side when you say pack shrink. And these are enumerations that are found in the GTK namespace. You can expand padding, which means the extra space is kind of filled with padding. It'll take up the space, but the button itself won't necessarily size. Or you can say pack expand widget, and you can cause the button to fill. You use the pack start or pack in method. And pack start basically means start at the beginning and start packing that way. In says start at the end and start packing that way. So you can see there's an example here of all kinds of fun buttons here. And you can see what happens if you do pack shrink. This is expand padding, to give you an idea of what it looks like. And this is expand widget. Everything's been expanded to fill the space. And like I said, it kind of has a notion of text. So as your check size changes, your button will change, your widget will change. And kind of just give you an idea of how it looks. You kind of expect it to look this way, right? In your meeting, you get the idea. And basically, this thing takes a command line argument. So if you pass in 1, 2, or 3, it'll do something different. It's just a simple case statement. But the example window has actually there's a subclass it uses called packbox that just handles packing the box for you essentially. And you can see that there's a button, 3 buttons, and a pointer group button. And the packbox itself basically takes the buttons and pack starts it into its own space. Oh, in fact, packbox derives from hbox. So you can do things like this. You can take an existing widget, add your own methods and things to make what your specific task is
So
easier.
packbox is something you made, you're saying?
Pardon me?
Packbox is something you made?
Actually, I didn't write this. These are.
Well, yeah, but I mean something that isn't part of GTK.
Yeah, these are part of examples. You can go into this. There's examples that come with the distribution. So the guy just wrote this packbox to kind of illustrate the flexibility of being able to derive derivations from polymorphs. But also he has a few methods in the constructor that make things a little bit easier. And so he just packs all 3 buttons, and then he adds a padding string, and then he adds a custom button on the stack of heat, and then he packs it in. You can see that pack start expects a reference to a widget, so you got if you're dealing with a pointer, you have to basically pick what the pointer is pointing to and pass it in. But if you look at the example, each one of these things is a pack box. So there's 3 buttons and there's something at the end. Actually, I think those are the 3 buttons, and that's the expand widget. And then, of course, the example window itself just has a button at the bottom, a V box that we're packing, and the place where we're going to put the quit button. Let's go back and just take a look at that. So here's the quit button, and this is in its own button box at the bottom. So we can delineate where we want things to land. And also, boxes have the notion of a separator to make things look nice and bit of space. And I'll just look at one. Let's look at one case and kind of see just the syntax, just to give you an idea. But when you call pack start, you pass in your widget, and then you pass in how you want this thing, how you want the widget to pack itself. So in this case, you see that this one does pack shrink, and then down here you have a pack expand widget. So pretty basic stuff. Any questions about this example? I think it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so I'll talk a bit about buttons and signals, which will probably get you to see how that works. But the button, GTK provides a button, and you can see that it's got a bunch of different derivations from the button. Color button and font button, option menu, and a toggle button, and a check button, and a radio button. And they all derive from the button. And a button happens to be a bin, which is a type of container. You can add a button as you would any other widget. You can hold any widget, the most common being a label, so you can actually have a label on your button. You can put an image in your button. And again, like I said, you've got other button subclasses that extend the functionality of the button. And then this is how signals work on buttons. Buttons offer a certain kind of signal that is specific to it. So for example, signal click, which is you'll use. Signal enter leave has to do with the mouse, so you can make it highlight. When you get to the mouse comes over, you see enter and leave. Signal pressed and released, so you can have things happen when you press them. Of course, in most cases, signal click is your friend. So let's skip past.
And click works as you expect, where if you click the button, hold, and then move off and let go, it doesn't.
Yeah, that's what you use pressed and released.
Tell that to Yahoo. Oh, sorry. Another Windows app that I don't know.
So basically, you have the example code that you kind of use to see where we have a signal handler. So, and again, we've seen this before. We just connect the widget to. Notice that it says button signal underscore click, and they're always in that form. Signal underscore action. So I just connect up my clicked my clicked event, and I get called. The button is clicked. Simple, really straightforward stuff. So now I'll talk a bit about GTK menus and toolbars. Now, so far what you've seen, if you've ever done any interface programming, if you've ever used a library that doesn't use UI interfaces, these are like pretty straightforward things. When you get into menus and toolbars, you start to diverge from the traditional interface library. GTK, the guys that built this decided to have it's called a UI manager. So effectively, a UI manager is something that understands the concept of actions.
You mean GTK MM specifically?
This probably exists in GTK Plus. I think it has.
Oh, okay.
I think there's a UI manager, but GTK MM has abstracted this into a very object-oriented framework. It might not be in GTK Plus, so that's an action map on that out. But basically, the UI manager has a notion of action and action groups. Whenever you want to say create a menu or a toolbar item, you create an action. It seems like this might be a bit over-engineered, but you'll see it gets really powerful. So basically, what you do is, if you want to create a menu in GTK, for example, create a UI manager instance, create an action group. Now, you'll create an action per menu item or toolbar item. Now, these are abstracted from the UI. This is just basically almost like a model view kind of architecture. And then basically you add this bit of code here, adds an action. So for example, I take my action group, call the add method. I create this as a static method that creates the action. Name, which is the name that's going to appear in the menu itself. And I'll talk a little bit more about what stop items are. This makes life a little bit easier. Like you've probably seen the standard GTK apps have like the standard new button and the standard open button and the close button and that kind of stuff. They're called stock items, and they're built right into the library. And then you assign it a signal, so on action file menu. So in this, when you select file menu, you're going to get called at this method. So now you keep adding action groups, or actions really, to each group, until you have a menu and menu item you want to define. And then you add the action group itself to your UI manager, and you have multiple action groups. Now, the next step, we created our abstract actions.
So these are all nested within, actions are nested within an action group.
These are nested within an action group. So you create an action per menu item.
And then you add the action group to, it's nested within the next one up.
Well, see, you're not at the, see it? Yeah, well, we're at a level where we're just talking about pure actions. We don't care about the layout of the menus.
But I mean, the logically, you create the action group, inside it is the action
Yes.
of that group.
The action group is a container that contains all the actions.
Okay.
The UI manager, you say, here's my UI group. And the reason why they do, there's only one group per UI manager, but I think the reason why they did that is so you can change groups out.
Based on context.
Yeah, exactly. But you can use this to do all your menu items at once, or you may have different forms that your menu take depending on what's on your screen. You might click something and all your menus change. Well, you might abstract it into an action group. The next step is to actually create how the menus will look. And this is where we start nesting menu entries. But it's actually an XML string. You take that XML string, feed it into the UI manager, and in the XML string, you actually describe the layout of your menu and toolbar as well. And once you do that, you can then create the widgets that actually display this information. So, like for example, here's a very brief example. Again, this example lives in the example that comes with GTK. And then, but notice that we've got two top-level menus, and here's what the file menu looks like. And we have these buttons on the toolbar. Okay, and notice that they correspond. There's a stage drive, which the button image is missing, so it just looks like this. There's open or new doesn't show up on the toolbar, and quit shows up. Okay. Now these are actually the same action, they're just two different views. So when I click on quit, I'm going to get file quit called. So I don't have to manage it. Once I've created the action, all I do is just describe how it's going to look in XML and display it. Sure.
As far as action group goes, is that corresponding to one individual drop down to the top of the menu bar, or is it something else?
The action group is an abstract collection of all of your menu items, of all of your toolbar items.
So that would include, say, both the file and edit items would all be in one
Yes,
group?
they're all in one group.
I know in KDE applications you can actually say, okay, I've got this toolbar of buttons that comes with, new open, save, print. And you can actually go in, and pretty much every KDE application has an option in there that says configure toolbars, and you can start dragging and dropping whatever buttons you like based on, I guess, whatever actions the application can do onto these toolbars. So I guess that's kind of a similar idea here, where you can say, here's all the things you can do, this is the way the layout is normally, and then maybe later on the user can change it, or?
Well, yes. In fact, what you would do is you would create a pool of all of your possible actions. Whether you display it or not, whether you don't even have to put it on the menu. You just have the action available. And it's actually analogous to that. The XML description is just the way that you tell the application what menu items to show, what toolbar items to show. And you could create a facility where you drag one to, I want to display this item on this menu. Just put it in the XML description and it will just turn up. So basically, let's just look at, I didn't bother putting the name in because we all know what that looks like. So here's our example node.h. And get a bit into stock items and that kind of thing. I'll talk about that in a second. But basically, if you look at our signal handlers here, you've got on action file new and on action file quit and on action others. Okay? We have a layout box because we want to be able to, and you can see on this example app that we're going to lay out the menu itself and the toolbars in this box. And then we have basically what's called a ref pointer. Oh, actually, it's an HTML error. It's a template. has. Basically what that's supposed to say is GTK, glib ref pointer, greater than, less than symbols, and in there is GTK UI manager, and the one below that is GTK action group. I just kind of pasted the code in. You know what I'm saying? So you're misinterpreting them as tags and ignoring them, throw them out. Okay, so basically, we add our bot. You can see this line right here. We add the inbox. Then we create our action group. Okay. Once we have our action group created, and this is just one side note. The glib ref pointer is a templatized class that's basically a smart pointer. It does reference counting. You can, and basically there are a few facilities in GTK that will return a ref pointer. You can't get the bear pointer out, unless you hack assembly or something. But as far as the rules of C++, it's completely protected. And there are no overload methods that let you get that pointer out. The idea, I guess the theory behind it is you should pass around copies, pass by value, the ref pointer, which will copy the value and keep an internal reference. So that way, and that's very powerful. So you can have several different modules that have pointers to the ref UI manager, and when they get deleted, that reference counter will be, decremented to find the last one when it gets to 0 to destroy it. The class itself is not reference counter, but the container is. So anyway, there's a few things in GTK and then that basically go to the ref pointers. So anyway, you can see through this syntax, this overloaded syntax is acting like a regular pointer. That's an overloaded method, overloaded operator. Well, that's what gets to the internal bear pointer. So we can call methods on that method. So once we have the group, we want to be able to add our actions to the group. So there's a static method for action called create, like you see before above. And basically, this is the name of our menu file. This is the name of the action. And the underscore, you guys on Windows programming, you probably recognize the Windows they do an ampersand that says, make this be the action key, the accelerator key. In this case, they decided not to use the ampersand because that can be misinterpreted as an integer in XML. So they went with an underscore. So you prefix the character you want to be the accelerator key, or whatever, with the underscore. Then you create the action, we'll go on, we create our actions. And in this one, since this is a menu, there's no signal, we don't need to put a signal in. But for our file new, we do want a signal, so we go ahead and put our signal in. We pass the pointer to on action file new. An open method, use all stock IDs. And then this one is a little different, and I'll go into that in a bit, but I'm adding the rain button, okay? So we add the rain button, but instead of saying GTK stock, open, or whatever, we actually have our own stock ID that we created. We pass in our own sample image. So this is a way that you can have custom icons showing up in your menus and toolbars. And GTK kind of understands what stock ID is. And there's a lot of hoops you got to jump through to make that work. But once you get your methods in place, your library in place, it just works. Okay, so we add all of our actions. This is everything: cut, copy, menu edit, cut, copy, and paste, right? Then we create our UI manager. We pass in the pointer to our action group, and we add an accelerator group. We get from the UI manager. That'll handle those accelerations that we saw. And now here's what we've been waiting for, the actual XML description. And you can see this is sorry about that. This is the XML description of our menu. So remember the word menu bar. Well, at the top here, UI. We have menu bar, name, menu bar. And it's going to look for an action called menu bar. And I think you'll actually, if you start specifying actions that haven't been defined, this whole thing is going to, basically it's going to fail when you try to load it into the UI manager. But here's a menu bar, and here's, which is the guy that's at the top. Then there's our actual menu file, and then each individual menu item appears here. A separator, another menu item, rain, separator, menu item, quit. Again, these are the action names that you specify above. And same thing, here's the edit menu, and then here's the toolbar that we want to show in the toolbar area. And it's got its own XML description, toolbar and tool item, respectively. Name and action. Then, we take the direct UI manager and we add UI from string. Makes sense. And it will throw an exception if we have a problem. So we're probably going to do a try catch. So yes, there are exceptions, but they're exceptional. They're rare. They don't. Not everything throws an exception. But I think for the worst errors, we'll actually get an exception. And then they say, okay, great. Now the UI manager knows. Now how do we get our widgets out? Well, UI manager says get widget, and basically we say it's a path into our menu tree. So basically we say, at the root we say / menu bar, and that description is up at the top. Menu bar, and we just call it the same thing. That passes out the pointer to a widget, which is going to be our actual menu bar. Now if you get into the widget set, you'll actually find the definition for a menu bar. And it's called GTK home menu bar. You never have to really deal much with that interface. All you do, if you let UI Manager do the trick for you, you just get a pointer to it, and you add it to your VBox. Same thing, we get / toolbar, we get a pointer to a toolbar, and then we pack start, well first we pack start our menu bar in, onto the box, we pack start our toolbar into the box. Then we say, that's a nice convenient method that says show all children. The container understands what children it has in it, so you can go through the entire container and say show everything. Remember to do that, it's really important. You're going to start up your app and go, how can I remember my stuff showed? What's going on? I got blank window. That's what. And then we have our actions. So if you press the quick button, you get hide. The window hides. And if you do that, that closes the application. And on action file menu. And on action others. So when you click that rain button, you're going to get that call. Now, I talked a bit about stock items. Before you add your action, and before you can call the GTK stock ID, you need to create the stock item. And so basically, you have to have an icon factory. You pass in the file path of your ID, and then you pass in the name, essentially. And this is a pretty involved thing, and I won't go into gory details. Just to give you an idea, you have to have an icon set and other things. And then basically here, in your icon factory that GTK provides for you, you have the stock ID right there. Once you do that, now GTK understands, oh, here's your ad right here. And it says, oh, you have a stock item. And stock item is this text string. And then you basically, the register stock items does that. Creates a factory, calls that add stock item method you saw above. Add default says add. That's important to do because then you'll get all the default stuff. If you want to create all your own file and all that other stuff, you might not want to call them. But this is nice. You say add default, you'll get all the stock stuff that comes with GTK View and Open and Play and tons of other stuff. And that's all pretty well documented too.
Say, this sounds like some known applications. This is a tour of what goes on in a lot of known applications.
Well, GNOME is based all, I mean, it uses the GTK library to render everything.
Like, it sounds like a tour of some stuff I run every day.
They go figure, right? Okay, so now, on to more complicated things. If you thought that was bad, we'll talk about the tree view now. It's kind of not for the faint part. The tree view, these guys went nuts. I mean, they went off the deep end on this one. And it's, when you first see it, you just go, oh my God, I just want to have, you know, a list of items, and I just want to have maybe a widget here or something. And, you know, it'll scare you away. It sure scared me when I first saw it. But when you get into it, you get where they're coming from, and you see that it's actually very powerful. The tree view widget itself stores the data in what's called a tree log. Anybody heard of model view architecture? So the idea being that you have an abstract model of your data, and you have a view, and you have many different views of the same data. The advantages of it is that the data is abstracted away from the UI component. It's very easy to link more than one UI component to the same data set, and multiple UI components linked to the same data set are automatically updated when the data set changes, which is nice. So all you do is just change one thing, and everything else changes. You got a bar graph over here, a pie graph here, and a spreadsheet here, and they just all automatically change. The disadvantage is that it's a complicated implementation. You just want a simple list view of something. It just has a couple of items in it, or a grid or something. It's a lot to grok for the beginner. And it's hard to customize outside the set rules. So if you want to have your container now do something it was never intended to do, like one thing it just can't do, and you would have to get in and really get down to the nuts and bolts to make it happen. But if you wanted to have a column, and in the list, if you wanted to have a column, each row had a different widget. You can't really do that. So well, you probably could, but you have to create your own renderer. And there's a lot involved. So, but as long as you stay with the set rules, it's pretty straightforward. So once you learn, once you get into it, so don't give up. Here is what a tree view looks like. It's called a tree view, but it does everything. It can do like a little plus button type control, which is the tree hierarchy. Also, with a list view, you can have columns as well. So you can have both. You can have a plus appear something on the side, and you can have child elements to that to each entry. So it's pretty powerful. But basically, I do this because I want to show how to take it down. Oh, you did that. But I also put this in because the dice look pretty. But what's neat about these is these are vector graphics. I'm actually just putting an SVG file directly in my button image. I think it's really neat. So GTK just like handles that kind of stuff under the hood. So you don't have to worry. So basically, I've got a row with an ID, an image, and a name. I'm sort of column clicking over at the top. So the example window itself, we have our usual, button quit and delete and that kind of stuff. This incidentally is an example that I wrote myself, and I submitted it to Murray Kumi, but he wound up turning it down because it was so similar to the current program. I wanted to be able to demonstrate sorting. There wasn't an example in there at all that showed you how to click on a column. Something so basic everyone's going to want to do. It just isn't an example. You kind of have to figure it out. So anyway, long and short of it is, you recognize the ref pointer. Well, here's a pixbuff pointer. When you're dealing with those images that you saw, you have to put in what's called a pixbuff, and they only can be dealt with on ref pointers because you have to use a static method that returns a templatized pointer. But I just put a nice convenient type in. So when you see that, that's what that means. Now we describe our actual model itself. The model of that you saw above basically looks like this. There's a class that you want to have, you want to drive from called column record. And I call it model column, you call it one. And the other thing I'm doing is I'm defining the model right inside of the widget itself, which you can define outside. And that's maybe more, a better approach. Anyway, define here, and I have a set of templates members for each column. And there's one that's actually, there's one that's actually hidden. But there's a column ID, a dice ID. This one's hidden. You don't actually see it. Pixbuff and the name itself. And the Pixbuff, of course, is the input. The reason why I put that on there is because you want to be able to sort by the dice. Well, you'd be sorting by the pointer. not very useful. So I have like these dice over here. And so seems pretty straightforward so far, right? And of course, on your constructor, make sure you call the add method, otherwise you won't get anything in the model. And then of course, I have the column itself, the V-box, and I shut it in. The scroll window allows me to put scroll bars on the side. So I create my tree view within the scroll window. And then of course I have a tree model here, which is a list store, and I have a tree selection. they abstracted all of the selection features out of the tree view class into its own class and just get pointing to it. And then of course our buttons. And I have a class here and a set of global entries just to make it easier for me to put entries in my model. So here I've got files called GNOME -1 log SVG, and that's of course the SVG file for files. Now here's where it all starts. Go ahead and add all the widgets that we want in order. We add our VBox, and in the scroll window I add a tree view, and then I add a policy for the bars, for the scroll bars. And then I pack started, I add my button box, and then I pack my button box with stuff. It's all straightforward stuff so far. But then I create my tree model itself, and I pass in the in columns. Now tree model, the list store understands, oh, okay, I'm going to create another class that's going to understand this model layout. Then I take the tree view and I say, hey, set model to this tree model. Again, it's a record. Okay. Now tree view knows how it should, knows what model it's supposed to go. It still does not know how to put, what to put where. Okay. Even though I've defined a model, I can put 100 different entries in the model. But I don't have to put everything onto the display. I can pick and choose. So I got to tell the tree view, hey, show these columns for me, please. So I set up a signal, and then I say, right, I'm going to append my columns. So I say, hey, tree view, append, that's the first column, my ID, I call it ID. Append my image as a fixed buff. Append the name. Notice I didn't put dice ID, I just put fixed buff. Then I say, set the initial sort column to be name. Then I've appended my columns, but now I want to go through and finesse these things a little bit. So I get the ID, I get the first column, which is 0, which is the ID. And I say, tell this column I want you to sort by ID, which you haven't worked out, right? Well, this gets interesting in the PixBuff itself. PixBuff is number 1, column 1. I say set sort column as dice ID. Now dice ID never shows up on the UI itself, but it's still there and it's handling all the sorting. And then I add the column name. And then I go through my G entries and I add each entry, basically. Now I get to the add entry method actually adds the data into your model. And as soon as you add data into your model, your widget will automatically respond. And here's the add entry, which is pretty straightforward stuff. Basically, you create a new row by calling the append method on the model. Then, row itself has an overloaded operator for brackets. You pass in the ID, and you say, take this value and add it to this row. Take this dice ID, and take this PixBuff image, and you can see what we created from the file. And then I say add name. And of course that gets done. I'm going to jump up for a second. Everything that shows up here kind of gets done for each entry here. And then the delete button is when you click on something. What it does is you go to the selection and you say, give me the selection. And the selection basically gives you the row that's actually selected itself. And then I should actually have a sanity check to make sure that I'm not getting 0 back. I take that and I erase, I just pass in an iterator and I erase it. It returns to you the iterator. So basically, they like STL a lot. And so you're going to see a lot of that. A lot of things behave on vectors and STL. And so when you want to deal with the members of the contents, the rows and the columns of your model itself, you're going to deal in iterators, and you have to translate iterators and all sorts of stuff. So it's a lot to grok. But the other thing is, I know when selections change. So when somebody makes a selection change, I can set the sensitivity on the delete. Set sensitive just means whether it's enabled or not, whether it's grayed out or not, based on if I've actually got selected rows. So if the rows are not selected, that delete button will be grayed out until I click it. that's how I do that. And that's a signal on the selection. So, okay. Any questions?
What?
Hey, what's the model again? It's a lot to drop, I grant it, and I just want to give you an exposure to it, but don't run away from it because it is very powerful. And in fact, the application you're going to see is really based largely around this, around the tree itself.
After you build this all, and say some you have delete and some you end up deleting rows of contents, how do you get it back out?
Say again?
You built this object, you have this stuff, you can reorder. Now let's say I want to output the result. Okay, I don't use example of that in this.
You mean you mean like persist everything?
Right.
I don't have
Persist is wrong.
I don't have an example that shows that, but you would essentially you would get out. A lot of the containers have a method called get children, and you get basically what they do is they hand you out a vector essentially. It looks like a vector. It's not really a vector, but it behaves like one. Again, iterators. And you notice that erase looks pretty familiar, right? It's just like STL. And so they tried to go that route. Unfortunately, there still is somewhat of a schizophrenia. There's the old way of doing it and the new way. And they're trying to go more for the new way of being like STL. The old way, every once in a while, you'll find a widget that doesn't have an STL interface. Eventually, I imagine that stuff will get deprecated. But anyway, yeah, so if you want to be able to enumerate through everything, your contents of your model, you would just use the vector that comes out. You just go right through it and just slip stuff out, and then you want to build it. It's the same thing. It looks exactly like this, right there. And you put it back in. So.
Can I ask
Sure.
a stupid question? Okay, like on that line in button delete, that instruction. Now, set underscore sensitive is a function call back into the libraries.
Yes,
And
and that's
passing the parameters wrapped in parentheses there. And it's, if you made an error in the writing of those parameters, it'll pick up and you had the wrong type or something, and it'll balk at compiling.
because set sensitive is expecting a Boolean value. So, and all I'm doing here is I'm saying, hey, tree selection. See how I got out of the tree object there. I say, tell me the number of selected rows. You can have multiple selected rows as well. You turn that on.
And now the other part of that same statement, m underscore button and underscore delete, that's the name you added to the program that's the function you call up higher.
This is a GTK button.
No, so that's also a function call to a,
This is
a button, it's pre-named button from the development library.
No,
well, the M button delete is a GTK button.
Okay.
but it's something that you created. That's a variable name for something you created.
Right. I'm following sort of a Microsoft standard. Everybody in the world is sort of doing M underscore for data members.
I haven't done much C++.
Okay. Well, a lot of times it's ambiguous when you're dealing with C++ as to is this variable I'm dealing with, especially if it's a huge method. Is this variable a class member, or is this variable a local variable? And that convention you're going to find all over the example code is M underscore. They follow that.
Can you show your declaration of that and your
So when
assignment?
I go looking for that PC m underscore button delete, and I go looking for it earlier in the code,
So if we go up here
it was up there.
and we look here, see, here it is. That's a data member, a class member. Called M button delete. It's just a GTK button.
Okay.
And we added it to a box, and I set the signal on it.
It's the name you created
Yes.
for that kind of a function.
Yes.
That's your copy of that function.
Yes, that's correct.
And then the other local name is the local name for your invocation of that function at that instance.
Right, that's all that is. But all I do is this method at the bottom is just a signal.
Passing that data to the function, wrapping the parentheses, and bang, there goes it.
Right. But if you go like for example, when I set this up, notice that I said, hey, tree, give me the pointer to your selection object. And then I say, signal changed, which is if you look in the documentation, you find out the signal changed, will get fired anytime somebody changes the selection of your widget. So if they click on a row, or highlight many rows, that's going to get fired. And so while I use that, say, call on selection changed when that event happens. That's all I do. And then what happens is at the bottom you can see that I could have broken this up into 2 lines to make it a little bit more readable, but really it's a Boolean value I'm testing. How many rows are selected? If that comes back as 0, I know I don't have anything selected, and I want to make sure if you press the delete button and nothing is selected, guess what will happen? Crash. So I want to make sure that doesn't happen.
And it's also a friendly thing.
Okay,
So
you've got the Boolean function here, and that's
The signature, the signature for set sensitive is Boolean parameter. And again, sensitive is the GTK tolerance for is the widget enabled or not.
yeah.
Grayed out. Okay. So, I'll go on to GTK dialogue. This is not as thick. This is a lot easier to deal with. But GTK gives you a lot of predefined dialogues that you can pop up that look nice. There's a, like, you're with programming a message box, right? Effectively, message dialogue replaces that. It's not an API call, it's a GTK feature. File chooser dialog allows you to peruse your file system and choose some kind of file. A color selection dialog allows you to generate a color specification. And a font selection, same thing. You can allow you to choose what kind of font you might want in your application. So, I mean, these kind of look like this. These might be a little hard to read. But this is a message dialog. And you can add your own text. You can also tell it what buttons you want to display. This is the file chooser dialog. This is your font chooser. And this is your color chooser. And in fact, it's supposed to be. Well, basically, I did this in another presentation, but I was running a different version of Firefox. But when you pop open the Firefox font selection dialog, for example, this is, I think, in 1.0, it looks like that, because this is all built on GTK. Okay. Now, there are some UI designers that are available. You might be saying, gee, this is great, Doug, but I'm lost. I just want to create my look and feel of my application, and I just want to see what it looks like. I don't want to have to write tons of classes and things like that, just to see what my application looks like. So, fortunately, the UI designers came to the rescue, and there are 2 designer and designer libraries that come with GTK. Well, really, Gideon doesn't come with GTK. Blade does, and Blade's pretty old. It's been around for a long time. It really was primarily designed for GTK+. But Gideon is brand new, and it's only designed for GTK MM. And it's a pretty nice design and pretty easy to use. Let me show you what Gideon kind of looks like. If you've ever done any Qt programming, maybe it looks different. This is a Qt design. But basically, you've got a list of widgets that you can have that are actually on the window itself. Here are the ones that are available, and then here are the properties. So when you select the widget on your form, these properties change in packing. And I think it's a pretty nice design. It's still kind of in beta. These guys just wrote the thing. And if you're interested in it, he's got Gideon Designer is basically hosted a blog spot. So go there. It's the page itself is. And it doesn't come with GTK, so you need to download the version. And you probably have to compile it. Because I don't even know if it's in Ubuntu or Debian yet. Might be, but and the guy that's designed this is trying to work closely with GTK and MT. Now, a brief note about these things is they don't output code. They output an XML description. We use a library. Both tools do this. You use a library that feeds your XML description, and you can get pointers to the widget that you want to show up. So, and there's a gotcha with Gideon that if you're going, it's completely GPL. So if you're going to create a proprietary application, kind of out of luck. You really can't use Gideon unless you decide to be sure about how.
How does Gideon's GPLness affect what it outputs?
It doesn't affect what it outputs. It affects the library that you bring in to make sense of the output. So you want to create your own library that parses the XML that creates the GUI descriptions, fine. You can't use theirs.
Okay. So somebody could rewrite something in old GPL.
They could. Yeah, you can bring in the XML and that's fine. The ones in the characters, you're not really distributing that anyway.
Well, what libraries are bringing in that Glade isn't?
Pardon me?
What libraries are is it making reference to get that Glade isn't?
Oh yeah, Blade has its own set of libraries too. I believe they're all GTK. They come with the distribution. But you bring in an XML description. Actually, like you do distribute the XML. You bring in the XML description at runtime, and it creates.
So basically, there's more to the difference than it just being a different way of generating an XML.
Yes, yeah. Well, yeah, there is. So you can use Blade, and it's safer, and it's, I believe it's LGPL. But Gideon is not. And actually, there is another downside to using it. Is because it's an XML file. Unless you can just get straight out and include it in your application, you might be able to. But having a separate file with a UI description might be a bad thing. You're sending it to your end users. Hey, how come my menus are gone?
Well, you do the same thing you did earlier and just make a humongous long character string.
Yeah, exactly. So you might be able to do that. You might be able to take and say, yeah, if they go in and they have to be executable. Anyway, so that's what they've got for radicals. Now, I'll touch briefly on the other platforms. It's supported natively on GNU Linux and Microsoft Windows. So if you build an application that's based on GTK, you can port it to Microsoft Windows fairly easily, as long as you write the rest of the code. So again, available for most major GNU Linux distributions. Get the source and power yourself for what? Microsoft Windows. A fellow named Cedric Houston, I think, and he's on the GTK NN mailing list, is the Win32 guru, and he has an excellent distribution that you can just run if you're on Windows. Just double click it and it installs it, and you can compile, or you can compile from the source using the Minion tools. That's different. I've tried that. I gave up. So it's not trivial at all. And I wound up using Cedric Houston's distribution. It works. But if you want 2.10, he doesn't have that yet. So you'd be at 2.8. So anyway, and if you've ever used Dev C++, which is an environment on Windows, it's a free open source environment. It will work with that. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about what I said? This is a lot to know. So anyway, I'll tell you about terminal. Oh, yes.
You may have mentioned macOS 10 earlier. Is that a native Alpha, or is it doing the old X11 on top of Alpha 6?
Right now, it's X11 on top of Alpha. If you use 2.8, you would be required to make sure the user installs X11. However, 2.10 endeavors to make the ports back to the Cairo, and you'll hopefully soon start seeing some native GTK apps. So right now, version, I don't know, incidentally, they use the same release cycle as GNU, so if it's 2.8 GTK plus 2.8, it's GTK amendment 2.8. They brag binary compatibility. Okay, so this is I'm going to talk a little bit about this application that I wrote called Term Launcher, and it's, if you've ever done any D&D gaming or anything like that, it helps the DMs basically, and it's a way to basically I'll give you a nutshell of when you're running a D&D game. Your players basically have to go in turn, and you have a set of monsters that you roll up for the players on battling, and everybody does what's called roll initiative. That puts everybody in roll a dice and modifiers and say, okay, you go first, then my monster goes. And that's fine, except that when you get heavy into it, people can do what's called the wait. They can wait to change their initiative order. which means if you're using a piece of paper with cards, it can get confusing. I found it was a nightmare. I was running my own game. I said, well, I have to automate this pretty easy computer program. So I wrote this application to facilitate that. Originally, I wrote it in full text. Has anybody ever heard of full text by chance? It's a yeah.
You said FLTK, so other people know, right?
Oh, FLTK. I just know
It's pronounced.
I think it's pronounced.
Yeah, that's what it was.
So Bill said.
Anyway, it's an extremely lightweight tool, so you can deploy it almost anywhere. Unfortunately, it doesn't look so good. So the widgets are all flat and the fonts are ugly. It's great for like, okay, I just want to like model something real fast. But for an application that I eventually decided to make professional, I wanted to look good. So I switched to GTK. I wanted a C++ interface library, how we're going to see. And I initially looked at GTK Plus, and it was straight C++. And I kind of looked at Qt, but they want a ton of money for a proprietary license. And so, but I discovered, hey, there's GTK. So I said, I'm going to check this out. So basically, I had to rewrite it a bit to have the tree view, as you can see. It's really full tick tree view system. So the same way.
Did you ever take a look at WX widgets?
No. And in fact, at the time, I didn't know about it. And I probably would have selected it because I wanted WX widgets to do everything.
I thought WX Widgets was C though, or is it C++?
No.
C++.
Okay.
It actually ends up eventually rendering into GTK Plus on
Windows,
Windows
yeah.
and Linux anyway. But
I thought on Windows you use native Windows.
well, yeah, that's the point. Is that yes, on WX widgets on Windows uses Windows stuff, and it uses Aqua on Mac, and as uses most things, of course. So.
They have a back-end architecture.
Yeah.
So you got back into the platform targeting. So you made it look good. And I made, you know, learning for a little bit. But anyway, so I had to rewrite it a bit to make it work with the tree view. Now, some distros, like Linspire, for example, they have a really old version of GTK, so I was not able to use the widget set, the development method that just came stock. So I wound up basically building my own target. And actually, under Linux, that's actually not that big a deal to build it. It's pretty straightforward. And basically, I distributed it, and in like a Debian package, for example, the user would have turned what you lived. So it's just basically it's its own GTK installation that lives under the user terminal. So if you already have GTK installed in the system, it won't drop. So here's what the interface looks like, and you can see just some features that we've gone over, and you should recognize them now. But we have a menu bar, we have a toolbar bar, and we have a list view, a tree view in here. It's basically functioning as a list. I don't have any pluses. And then I've got another area that has nodes and that kind of thing. There's a status bar. All these are all stock GTK widgets, GTK widgets. And let me show you the application itself. Actually, that's this is actually built from Debian package. But basically,
it means the kernel launcher itself is a Debian package?
yeah, I actually have it as a Debian package because we released it for both Windows and Linux.
It's a commercial application.
It's a commercial application. It costs $9.95, pretty cheap. But basically, this is it in a nutshell. Recognize any names?
Yeah, I have my glasses on.
That's her character, by the way.
Thanks for helping me that. Nerds!
I saw on the previous page that some of them were red and some of them were black. Does that mean some of them were NPCs and some of them aren't? Or something?
Good question. And I'll show you what happens when you bring in the bad guys. I was running a weird adventure, so that's why it says droid. But basically, basically, there's a helmet-looking hero kind of icon for the players, and there's an ugly fork-looking guy for the monster.
Oh, I thought that was maybe their racing.
Well, that's actually one of the features we want to put in, that you can have your own icons, or you'll have a set of icons depending on, because I'd like to be able to have a recognizable icon for each individual player. Those are features of that. Okay, so this is the tree view, so I can sort based on just clicking the column. So I can sort by these guys. Notice these are pix buffs. We've seen this before. And I have an ID that has a hidden column you don't see. That's how I achieve the sorting. I can sort by initiative. I can sort by spot checks and listen checks and real checks. Their health level, current health level. The status, so if they've taken damage, that'll sort correctly. And let's write the initiative. So basically, when I click this button, it will cause a roll to happen, basically. And I will put everybody in a particular order in the columns. So you can add new players or new monsters. Just by turning that table. And that, of course, is a GTK dialog that it's my own custom dialog, but it has the feature of having a button bar at the bottom. This is a little control I created because I wanted to be able to have, again, my problem with having a row with multiple different kinds of widgets in it. I couldn't do that using the tree view, but this allows me to do that. And there's a little spin button, so I can push this button and move values around. I can also use the other.
So now each of those lines in that display, like Dick, for instance, when you sort the column, you call redisplay the entire figure after running the sort.
All I do is I just tell the tree view, hey, I want you to sort on this column now, please. That's all I do. All I have to do is call them that says sort on this column, and it just automatically sorts, which is nice. Once I've gotten rid of the model view, that's all I have to do. I don't have to do anymore.
And what it's doing is walking through the data structure, looking at that column for each item.
Under the hood, yeah.
Okay, and then it lines them up and then decides in the order which it'll pull things up and down the machine.
Right, and it's happening under the hood. Once I set up my model and I tell it sort by this column, under the hood, GTK automatically knows how to sort. And so it says, oh, we order everything the way he asked. So initiative, when I click that, it sorts by initiative. And I can edit characters by hitting the edit button. I can delete, the delete button.
So it's not killing the window and redrawing the whole thing. It's simply a function within the window.
Yes.
So it's something contained in it.
It's a function that's in the library, GTK that just automatically does that for you. And you say sort by this, and it just does it.
Okay.
One of the features of object-oriented is that you're not supposed to ask how it's done.
Yeah. It's just a black box thing. But notice that now, this shows off the power of actions, okay? Notice that I don't have anything selected right now, okay? And these guys are dim, they're gray, okay? And if I go to the edit menu, notice that edit and delete are also grayed out here too. And my transaction, I don't have any redo capability. So when I click this, watch those things that change. Now they're enabled. Because you don't want to delete something that's not there. And if I go edit, see they're enabled in the edit bar. It's one action, that's the power.
Can you select more than one item?
Pardon me? Oh yes, absolutely. And in fact, certain things happen when you
so you can't edit multiple, but you can delete multiple.
Exactly. And so, let's see if there's a. This is also a fully transactive program. So if I add, let's do this. If I add a new TST on my edit, I say undo add character. I have an undo add character. And at the bottom, notice that it said undo add character. And of course, I can turn around and read that, put it back. So that's really useful when you're in the middle of a round and combat and delete something. I don't just undo it. It happens to me all the time. You take damage. That's 40 points when I put it in.
I'm curious, how many levels of undo do you
It's actually
have?
45 points.
How many levels of undo do you keep?
Oh, I just keep an infinite, however much RAM you have.
Oh, nice.
I don't need it. Because it's just a, you know, basically I use an object-oriented feature in the RAM. So
The garbage collection.
it's not really garbage collection. I actually everything in there in this application is actually reference counted. And so, yeah, and I use smart pointers like crazy, however. So it's nice. I just have a list of smart pointer by transactions. So now, say we want to start our combat. We're all ready to play, so we can start. Notice that these buttons now come gray. So I can go to the next, go to the next. I can also hit Control Z to go back up one. And notice it says undo next in the initial order. I also have overloaded the spacebar. In GTK, you can do that. You can listen for key hits in a method on your class, or you can be a static method. And you can listen for specific key hits. So in this case, I always want to listen to the spacebar when I'm in this. When I hit spacebar, I want it to go next. So I press spacebar and it goes next.
So this is where the hierarchy can be useful, because you can have one specific widget that you want, like the spacebar return carriage key to do something on, but then lots of other keys might be able to do stuff there, but also if the focus, say, isn't specifically in that widget.
Right.
Okay.
And I mean, you know, that's the power of course, you know, if you have like an application that has several different windows that all have, like GIMP, they all have different menus on each individual window.
You want Control N to
Yeah,
still do the same
and you
thing.
click over there and you get that action group. And you click over here, you get that action group. That's what we got. If GIMP was written in GTK, that's the way they would put it. That makes sense. So I can say next, you know, character, I can tell that I can say, oh, this guy delays, so I can put the delay button, and it goes into delay status. I can have that another character delay next. Oops. Oh, I click in, I didn't mean to. No problem, I just undo it. I can jump in. So here, tiny delay decides to jump in, and you see this initially order changes automatically. Say in the middle of combat, he takes some damage, so I can punch in. He takes 10 points of damage. And notice that he's now down to 54%, and his hit points, he's 12 out of 22. So basically, it's just a calculator that does all kinds of fun things. And pretty much, that's it. And this little, it's just a tool that makes things easy. 5 to 10 minutes? Okay. Pretty much, I think I'm done. But that's the application in a nutshell, and all based on Happy GTK.
Are you going to have your presentation on your website?
Yeah, we're gonna.
Are you going to post your presentation on the website?
Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, it's already on the PenLUG website. I can get it to you. It's up there. So,
Thank you.
certainly, no problem.
How long did it take you to write the initial, I don't know, say 75% of functionality of this application? Because I know the last 25 takes, you know, the other 50%.
I'm sorry, repeat your question again.
How long did it take you to get a more or less usable prototype of this application using GTK?
Use GTK, I think I got the first, I think it was just a matter of weeks, because I'd already had the same prototype in Full-Tick. So it was a question of just undoing what I'd done in Full-Tick, doing all the Full-Tick stuff out. The hardest part was the true view. That took a long time to do.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Yeah, but yeah, so but I think a matter of weeks, really. They have pretty decent documentation and a lot of great examples. So I recommend that you pour through them. And they've got a good mailing list, so if you run into trouble, the guys are really helpful. So put your question out there. So, any other questions? Okay, well that's it. Thanks for